Anyone in need of an abortion will soon have a surgical option in the Forest City, but there's no official opening date yet for the clinic as the Family Planning Foundation searches for employees.
23 News reporter Anthony Ferretti talks with a doctor who bought the clinic about the optimism for the place once it opens to the community and someone who's against the clinic opening.
Dr. Dennis Christensen bought the building at 4236 Murray Drive in Rockford to allow women who need abortion services to get the care that they need, including those who have to cross state lines.
I'm optimistic. So far, nothing has happened.
The Rockford Family Planning Foundation will oversee the surgical Rockford abortion clinic off Murray Drive once it opens, though they are in need of at least 5 positions, including clinic director and advanced practitioner, according to its website.
All the organization has to do is get their personnel and equipment in place, and they should be able to start seeing patients right away.
Illinois is a safe haven for reproductive care, meaning patients from out of state can come to Illinois if they seek an abortion.
When the Supreme Court shut down the availability of the abortions here in Wisconsin, we needed a place to refer our patients that didn't have to go into Chicago.
There is a sign at the entrance that says Midwest Reproductive Health with a phone number and website. Dr. Christensen says the foundation needs sufficient staffing and equipment to serve its patients. There are at least 2 people at the clinic as of Tuesday afternoon.
Every abortion is the taking of an innocent human life, a member of our human family.
Anti-abortion activist Kevin Rylot says opening this clinic would be a bad idea for the city.
This is just a total loss for the city of Rockford and our people. We want to be a community that loves each other, supports each other, and helps each other. And we can do this, but the first thing we have to do is turn away from abortion.
We did reach out to the Family Planning Foundation's Executive Director, Ann Rashine, for more information. We did not receive a response.
Thank you, Anthony. And there is a pill clinic for those seeking an abortion while the clinic is under renovation.
Dr. Christensen says they have helped hundreds of patients, a portion of which have come from out of state.